one of the best. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and one of the best podcasts I listened to this year was a conversation between Ross Roberts and Roland Fryer. And Roland Fryer has very quickly become one of my heroes, intellectual heroes. And he talks about the efforts that he took to transform the learning and education process in Texas, and the kind of experiments he ran using government money. And one of the things that he actually spoke about was he realized when teachers were an issue, he had a single test to identify which teachers to keep and which teachers to sack. Okay, the test was this. He would ask the teacher what needs to be done. She says, look, you're the expert. You tell me what the curriculum is. You tell me what's the mode of communication. You tell me what are the protocols, and I will work 10 hours, 12 hours with these kids to get them where I want them. He knew those were the teachers who were committed to the process. The teachers he knew to sack were the ones when he asked, what's the problem? They said, it's very easy. We need smarter kids. And those are the teachers he sacked. Okay, so I recommend that episode to everybody because I think about ideas from that conversation at least once a week, which ties back to your social venture sort of angle to the Malpani Ventures website when I was going through it. Because when I saw the kinds of initiatives, when I saw the kinds of content, website, etc., I realized this is someone who thinks very, very deeply about these issues, whether it is communication, whether it is getting the right programs running. So, can you talk a little bit about how is it that you are running this after looking at both? You have a background in life sciences biology, so when you understand the nature of how people learn, how they grow, plus when you look at how products are built, how companies are built, how scale is achieved, how do you combine those two lines of thinking to your social venture angle?
I think that's the good thing about having expertise in different domains. You try to marry the best. So I don't get intimidated when someone talks about cognitive neuroscience or this is how we learn or there's a constructivist theory and there is this thing. I think that's fine. This is jargon. I can pick up that jargon very, very quickly. So I don't get phased by anyone saying, oh, this is the only way or this is the right way of doing things. I can choose and pick and say this is what makes intuitive sense, which is why the books are very helpful, which is why I love people like John Holt, who are willing to say, he was a teacher for me. A lot of people say, Dr. Malpani, you live in this little ivory tower. What do you understand about schools? What do you understand? Did you homeschool your kids? Why are you giving us all this gyan and this lectures? Very valid criticism. And I say, you're absolutely right. I'm not the subject matter expert. But you know what? I've brought up kids. I've been educated myself, and I can read books which are written by people who spend their entire life coming up with a point of view. And if that's a point of view which makes sense, and these are people who answered their critics far more eloquently than I could possibly do. And that stuff's already there. It's been there for many, many years. It's just that people are lazy. They can't be bothered to read. They can't be able to understand what the alternatives are. And honestly, that's their loss. So some of it is that advantage that you're coming with that side is this is a fixable problem. Every problem has a possible solution. We don't want to eat the elephant all in one shot. It's one bite at a time. So a lot of it originally was how can I identify social impact entrepreneurs who have their heart in the right place, who care about this stuff, who are deep. Because let's be honest, I'm a dinosaur. My ability to actually do some stuff is becoming increasingly limited. But my ability to fund these people has increased dramatically. My ability to identify these people, thanks to Twitter, has increased dramatically. As a result of which, I need to play to my strengths. Are my strengths going to be better utilized creating a learning center? Or are they going to be better utilized funding 100 learning centers? So that I'm very clear about. This is the space I have the right to win. I have a particular philosophy. I'm happy to share it publicly. Lots of people may not agree. And, I make a lot of enemies by being politically incorrect, which is also absolutely fine by me. But I need to find maybe that one person out of 100 who says, hey, you know what he's saying makes a lot of sense. If we can get that resonance, if we find that sync, then writing the check is the easy thing to do. So we're running a lot of these experiments, for example, beyond exams, learn with comics. This is all stuff which I believe in, but I can't do any of it myself. I have very limited bandwidth, so many hours, and definitely no technical expertise. So you identify people who will take the ball and run with it. So one of the things I'm very, very keen on doing, and hopefully I want to finish in the next 1 year, is the Apni Patshala experiment which I'm running. which is effectively you're saying we're going to fund 100 community-based learning centers. Now, part of the problem is, so initially that's not how it started. We said, we need to disrupt. People love the word disrupt, right? I don't like the word disrupt at all because it sounds painful and just, you need to work with what is available. You need to evolve. I think change needs to be incremental. It doesn't need to be painful. So we said, okay, okay, forget about disrupting. Let's use a Trojan horse approach that we need to get changes, but we need to get changes one at a time. So let's start with everyone sending their kids to tuition classes. I think there must be more kids in tuition classes than there are kids in school classes. But okay, forget that. So everyone's sending kids to tuition classes, and tuition classes are a mess. So can we then set up community-based learning centers, which are technology-empowered coaching classes, tuition classes, whatever? We'll call them something. We'll call them community-based learning pods, community-based learning centers, whatever. Some of that will need to be figured. I will write the checks. I will fund it. And, the magic sauce is we will provide technology, which comes from a very clever company, which is actually making computers in Bharat for Bharat, which means your ability to be able to do it frugally is great. I'll say I need to run 100 pilots and 90% of these will fail. And that's fine. And that's my point about that's the natural history. Startups are designed to fail because even if 90% of these fail, the learnings we will get from the 10% who succeed, we'll be able to amplify. We can't afford to have expensive failures. You don't want companies like TCS failing. But it's fine if a startup fails because, of course, there's a lot of damage, emotional damage. 100 employees will lose their job. But that's better than 10,000 employees losing their job. So I'm not saying these are expendable pawns. I'm saying this is the way capitalism makes progress. Small steps at a time. Starting with the humility that we don't have the answers. So we're taking a very unstructured approach. We're sharing our philosophy. What are we saying? We think people in community care about kids. We think people in a community care about their kids' education. We don't think schooling is a very efficient way of providing that education, but we cannot reinvent the schooling system right now. We haven't earned that right. But a lot of kids are going to tuition classes, which are terrible because they're just schooling on steroids. Because all they do is teach you how to get more exam marks and cram more efficiently and give you tips, which is the worst possible thing to do. So why don't we set up tuition centers / coaching classes / community-based learning centers, what I call digital libraries or educational cyber cafes within 100 communities? And let's start with low-income, underprivileged communities. And let's give them the technology, which is 10 computers, which means let's say you have 30 kids or 40 kids, that's 2 or 3 kids on each computer, which means they now have access to the world's best resources because they have a computer. And you can now charge a premium as compared to the regular local tuition class guy who all he does is gives lectures. And everyone knows that lectures are a completely broken way of doing things. So that now we're providing you with access to your kid to a computer, which I think everyone understands is the way for the future. Let's see what some of these things are going to happen as a result of this. We think there are 4 things required for a kid to learn. We think the most important thing is intrinsic motivation. The kid wants to learn. I'll come back to that again afterwards. Because by definition, schooling doesn't give that kid any freedom at all. Oh, it's 11 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, you need to learn geography. Oh, it's 11:40, you need to learn history. Oh, it's 12:30, you need to go for your lunch break. Oh, you want to go to the toilet? Put up your hand and ask for permission. So everything's very regimented. So just when a class starts getting interesting, the kid is forced to move on to the next one. So completely broken, disjointed, siloed, everything else. So therefore, we think that we're forcing kids to do what we think is right for them. Because guess what? We have white hair, we're wise, we're mature, we're older, we've seen more of the world. We've designed this great national education policy with all these experts who will tell kids what to do when they don't themselves know what to do. And now you're preparing kids for something which is 10 years down the future, which is going to be so different from everything we've done. So anyway, so I think we'll come back to the intrinsic motivation afterwards. I think there are 3 things with kids. They need access to world-class learning resources. That's a no-brainer. But you know what? These world-class learning resources and these world-class teachers are not trapped in school classrooms. They're all available online. They're all teaching online because people love to teach. People love to share. The best teachers are the ones who love to teach. That's by definition. You can see that passion come across. So lots of them are available on YouTube University for free, and lots of them perhaps are available on paid courses. Doesn't really matter. So the point is, by giving them internet access, you're giving them access to the world's best teachers. So they have ability. Now, whether they self-motivated enough to want to learn just by themselves, whether they want to do it as part of a cohort-based course, which is the fancy word online, whatever, that's fine. That's number one. I think kids need adult supervision. And I think that's what these learning community pods will provide. And I'll come back to that in a minute. They don't need a teacher. They don't need someone to tell them this is what you need to do. It's actually a very unstructured format. We don't want someone who's a teacher. We want someone, because teachers have preconceived notions. This is the way to solve this particular sum. You know what? There could be 50 other ways, and 49 of them could be better than the one your teacher taught you when you were a kid. Let the kids figure it out for themselves. So we want, but the adult supervision is to make sure the kids don't fight with each other, they don't break things, they do whatever else it is. It's not to make them learn. It's not even to force them to complete a curriculum or to study. You want to watch YouTube videos? You want to play games? You want to watch? Do whatever you like. And I'll come back to why I think that's the right way of using an unstructured format. So the adult supervision, we think the magic sauce is the peer-to-peer learning. And I think, we keep on talking about a shortage of teachers in our country, and I think we're stupid. Every student is a teacher. Every sixth standard kid can teach a fifth standard kid far better than a fifth standard teacher could ever do it. Because teachers suffer from the curse of expert knowledge. We've forgotten what it was like to know nothing. Whereas a sixth standard kid knows exactly what it was like to know nothing and then to be able to learn. And therefore, and you know what? They use the same language. It's a local language. They use the same metaphors. And kids aren't scared to ask questions to someone who's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years older to them. They're very scared to ask questions to the teacher, because the teacher will think you're an idiot, or the teacher will refuse to answer these questions. So I think that information gap goes down because there's no authority gradient. So I think a student can teach, and so that's peer-to-peer learning happening. And you may know geography, your friend may know history, someone or the other in that group will be able to teach you. So you have adult supervision, you have access to the world's best resources, and you have peer-to-peer learning. We think that's enough to be able to get this going. But we think the magic sauce is intrinsic motivation, which means we're not telling you do this particular thing. We're saying, you know what, if you don't understand what's happening in school because your teacher went too fast, didn't explain properly, and you want to learn a little more about Akbar, why don't you do a YouTube search on Akbar and find something on Akbar in Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, cartoon, animation, historical film, whatever you want. That will help you learn, and that what you learn for yourself will be much stickier than what a teacher forces you to cram for an exam. Your depth of learning will be much more. Your breadth of learning will be much more. Your context will be much more. It's not what you learn, it's how you learn. So we're teaching you to take ownership of your ability to learn for yourself. Multiple good things happen. You don't understand how to do your homework? I'm not going to do it for you. Sorry. But you know what? I can tell you where to find the resources. Or even if I can't tell you where to find the resources, I will tell you, you can go talk to this particular person in this class and he will help you find the resources to learn for yourself. So this is how you solve the homework piece. It's a great way of using the flipped classroom model, because this is what your teacher is going to teach you the next day, or this is what your textbook covers. Why don't you just do this quickly? Because there's so much time wasted in a school that you could actually finish an entire day's academic curriculum within 2 hours of focused learning. So that if you've done that before, when you go to school, boss, you're going to be the whiz kid. You're going to become the teacher's pet, because you know everything about Akbar. You know who Akbar's father was. You know who Akbar's wife was. You knew who Akbar's kids are. You knew exactly what happened. How can this teacher not be impressed by a kid who takes so much interest in what is happening, so that you become the teacher's pet even in school, and the kid then gets the teacher's special attention. So you're using the flipped classroom model as far as academics go. You're using help the homework as far as academics go. And you know what? You don't want to do the academics? Don't do them. I don't really care. You want to learn more about, whatever, photography, Bharatnatyam, your mother wants you to learn something, or your mother, actually does pottery at home. Or your mother has a cow at home and she's not sure how to do when that cow is sick. Or your father has a farm and you want to know what else you can do on that farm, or My point is these all need to be related to real life problems. We learn the best when we're learning to solve a particular real life problem. What do I care about what happened to Akbar? I honestly don't. But I do care about the fact that the walls of my house are now flaking. The paint is coming off. What can I do? Why does paint flake off? What is under that paint? Is brick the best thing to do? Is there something I can do to actually paint the wall myself? Do I need to find someone who will paint it for me? What's an oil paint? What's a primer? 50 different things. I don't know anything about it. But you know what? I can figure it out. Then these kids, once they start becoming learning machines, what changes is what's happening inside their head. Then they don't think of themselves like I'm an idiot or I'm a doofus or I'll never understand or I'm challenged. They will say, you know what, if I could figure this out, if I could figure out how to paint my house, I can figure out anything. I don't have to necessarily read a textbook in order to figure it out. I learned what I needed to know when I needed to know it. That's called just in time learning. That's completely different from just in case learning. Just in case 5 years from now you need to sit for an IAS exam and the UPSC examiner happens to ask you Akbar ki BB kaun thi. So just in case you need to learn, so let me teach you now, which I think is ridiculous. So the learning in school has no stickiness. It uses an obsolete system. None of the kids remember anything after the summer holidays. We all know that. As a result of which, even if you think that you've taught them something, they've not learned anything. So don't confuse teaching with learning. Don't confuse schooling with education. We're giving kids the power and the tools to be able to learn for themselves. And that's what we want to achieve. So think of these as educational cyber cafes, digital libraries. This is exactly what Andrew Carnegie did when he died many, many years ago. He set up a chain of public libraries. And in that days, that was a big deal. But most people did have access to books in those days. But the public library changed the way citizenships in the US was thought of. It changed the way citizens thought about themselves because they could organize, they could get the information. They understood what people were trying to tell them. You weren't restricted to what your school teacher happened to teach you. I think we're no longer restricted to physical libraries anymore. I think once you can do this, and there is no shortage of money in this country. There's no shortage of people who care about kids in this country. So I think if I can run this experiment well in the next 1 year, hopefully, and again, this is a thought experiment. Do we have any success stories? Big fat zero. Do I hope we will get success stories? I think we will. Why do I think we will get these success stories? Because I think the most important thing in educational technology is the human in the loop. This is the caring adult. This is the trusted adult who's running that community-based learning center, who's everyone else in the community trusts. She may be illiterate herself. She may be completely ignorant. She doesn't understand calculus or geography, but she's trusted. Everyone knows her. So mothers know if I send my kid to auntie's class, my kid will be looked after properly because my auntie cares. Just imagine some of the magic which is going to happen then. Kids are going to feel safe and trusted. Parents are going to feel safe and trusted. The parent who's taking care of that particular class has kids who are in that class. So which means she's answerable to the other kids' parents because what? They're all neighbors. It's not like this thing where you meet a class teacher once a year in a parent-teacher association meeting where maybe she'll give you 5 minutes of her time. This is someone you meet when you're shopping every single day. So when she asks you, hey, how is Atul doing in class or is he learning anything? You're going to tell him, you know what, that guy isn't paying attention. So the mummy or the daddy, whatever else. You're getting parents actively involved in the learning of the kids because this is happening next door. Parents are welcome to walk in. They're welcome to watch what their kids are learning, whether their kids are learning a lot at all. There's a lot more answerability, accountability, transparency because this is not in a school building which is away from everyone else. It's part of the community. And this is where some more of the magic comes in. It need not be only kids who use this learning center. We want adults to use it. Suppose you're not very happy with what's happening in your community. You need to send an RTI application. You need to type up a letter in English, or you need to read a letter which someone has sent you. So many, or you just want to improve. You need to be able to understand what your kid is doing because your kid is doing things you can't. You want to upgrade your own skills. Come, that technology already exists. So at some point, we hope a lot of additional things will happen. This will happen as a nucleus for the entire community to want to learn. Need not be restricted to kids, need not be restricted. So we don't have any hidden agenda. We don't have an agenda. I think that's really what makes us powerful. Two or the three of the things we've been told is, how will you know whether your kids are learning anything or not? I think that's a great question. You know what we're saying? Because people are so used to teacher कौन है, कौन सिखाएगा, lecture कौन देगा, तुम तो बच्चे को computer दे रहे हो, उससे बच्चा सीखेगा कैसा? So we're saying, we're guaranteeing you that your kid will get more marks in the next exam. Why can I say that so confidently? Because once you've allowed that kid to learn for themselves in an open learning environment, that kid will pick up stuff. And so that kid will definitely do it. You know what? This then becomes a positive virtuous cycle. Hey, wow, that kid goes to that particular class. Not only has that kid learned how to use a computer fluently, his English skills have improved. And he started getting many more marks. Once it happens for one kid, then, herd mentality kicks in. This is the good herd mentality, not the bad one. And therefore, more parents will start sending the kids. The second thing is, we want whoever runs these learning centers to charge money. And there are two reasons for that. We don't think charity is good for self-respect. We think people, if they pay, they will demand accountability. When it's free, अच्छा ठीक है, मेहरबानी कर रहे हैं, हमारे बच्चे को सिखा रहे हैं, कुछ भी कर रहे हैं, मैं क्या बोल सकती हूँ. But when I'm paying 1,000 rupees for my kid to get educated, boss, if you're not doing a good job, I will come and pull you up. So everyone then starts becoming much more. I think this is the good piece of capitalism. You need a market in order to get things. And you know what? If there are two communities learning centers and one is doing a better job than the other, the bad one will close down and the good one will start a franchise and will start 3 and 4 because they've managed to crack what the magic sauce is. So we think that will automatically grow. So we think the micro entrepreneur, the mom who runs this particular learning center now has skin in the game. It's a source of income for her. It's in her best interest to make sure that she continues providing the best possible service. Why should she have to care about Dr. Malpani? We want her to be financially independent after that first time. We want her to earn more money. It's great for her self-respect. It's great. It's aspirational for other people. It's good for her self-esteem and her independence. We want people to earn money. So it's good for women empowerment. It's great for girls because a lot of times parents are very reluctant to send girls to tuition classes because they get bullied and teased on the way and you don't know where they're going. But if you're sending them to auntie who's running that community class, who's your next door neighbor, you're happy to, ठीक है, दिन भर बैठ के जा. तुझको कुछ काम नहीं है ना तो तू बैठ के कंप्यूटर पे खेल और तो कंप्यूटर पे जाके सीख. So we're providing this safe environment, which is why we need to partner with NGOs. Because why would any community trust Dr. Malpani? Communities, by definition, don't trust outsiders. They've been cheated left, right, and center. All these politicians come in before the elections, we will do this and we will do that, and the moment the election is over, they've disappeared. Everyone promises to give them money, and God only knows what happens to that money. But the NGO has been there for 3 years. These are familiar figures, these are trusted figures. So if we can partner with NGOs, and you know what? NGOs have their heart in the right place. They're not just looking for making money. They care about an impact. So if I provide the funding and the technology, if the NGO provides that supervision, because a lot of these micro entrepreneurs may not be able to do that in the beginning, they need a little bit of hand holding. Then we can set up these centers. And then we want these centers to build in public. We want all these centers to have their own website. We want each student to have their own website. Then the student will start teaching other students in Malayalam or Telugu or whatever else. Imagine a 5th standard student wants to teach Pythagoras theorem to someone else in Malayalam. You know what? At some point you may feel intimidated by a teacher. But अरे यार वो 5 साल का बच्चा है हमको 5th standard kid सिखा रहा है अगर वो सीख सकता है तो मैं भी सीख सकती हूँ. That's the kind of role model. So I think there's actually, if we can use the technology cleverly, we can crack so many of these problems. So I think we've reached a demographic sweet spot. We have enough human capital in this country. We have enough financial capital in this country. I think we have enough Indians who have their heart in the right place. I think it's just a question of marrying them all together. So that's what makes me want to get up in the morning and say, yes, we want to be able to make a difference. Long-winded answer. Sorry about that. I get a little bit carried away, but I mean, I believe in this so much, and I think there's just so much opportunity, and I honestly think the time is right. Whether it's internet penetration, whether it's 4G today, whether it's 5G, whether it's the affordability of computers, so many things are magically happening, which perhaps couldn't have happened 5 years ago. I would be a big shame if we fritter away these opportunities. So I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is.